Hi everyone, and welcome to the December edition of What's New in Creative AI.
Hello.
So last month we talked a lot about Google and Claude dropping new features on their models.
Yep.
Well, this month it has been very dominated by OpenAI, but we will try and get some other news in there as well for you. So,
And what have OpenAI been doing?
they have had a huge campaign of 12 days of OpenAI in around Christmas where they're dropping new product features every day.
Yeah, so we normally think the pace of AI development is pretty fast because we get a new feature or two every month.
Yeah.
We're now getting one every day for 12 days.
Quite a lot to try and cram into What's New in AI.
Yeah, luckily we're only halfway through the 12 days, so we only get to cover 6 of them. But even so, pretty mind-blowing the pace of development that's going on right now.
So we're going to talk about first all the features that are available like right now today, and then there are a couple of features which are pretty amazing that we can't quite get here in the UK yet. Probably. Yeah. Do you want to say?
Yeah, UK and Europe, some of the features are being withheld from us at the moment. We suspect it's to do with the EU AI Act and the lack of clarity around, what that allows and what that doesn't allow.
Yeah.
So for now, some of the most interesting features aren't ready for us yet, but we're going to tell you a little bit about them.
I'm sure they're going to get here pretty
Anyway.
soon. So let's dive in and chat about what is ready now.
So what is ready now?
So first of all, you might have seen that ChatGPT launched their new plan, which is $200 a month.
That's right, you heard it, $200 a month.
To begin
10
with.
times more expensive.
Yes, it feels a bit horrifying to begin with, but there is quite... And when they announced it on the first day, I think.
Yeah, they're just softening us up.
Yeah, so they didn't talk about all the stuff you get in for that price, and they've been kind of releasing that as we go through these 12 days at Christmas.
Yeah, so the sticker shock may fade when you start to realise what you get.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing you get is we move from the preview version of O1 to the fully fledged tested version of O1.
Which is just called O1.
Yeah? Do you want to tell us about it?
So O1 is just called now, no preview on the end. And first of all, it's way faster than the preview version. It's 2 or 3 times quicker. If you remember, what's special about this model is its so-called reasoning. So all of these models have used up lots of computational power to train them and build the weights for all of those parameters. And then when you go and ask ChatGPT a question, if you're on 4.0, the one we normally use, it spits out an answer right away. What O1 does is it goes away and thinks about it and uses computational power, what they call inference compute, to actually work through its answer in more detail.
Do you think it's a bit like me being dyslexic? It takes me a while to think through answers.
Maybe. You are expensive to run.
Yeah.
If only it was $200 a month. It is much faster. It's also more accurate than the preview version. In tests on math and science and computer code, it's much more accurate. It is also multimodal. Previously, O1 Preview could only work with text. The new one can work with images as well. There's even a special pro mode for those of you on that $200 a month subscription plan that gives it even more inference compute time that makes it even more accurate for certain tasks. So $200 a month, though.
Yeah.
Mucho casho.
Well, it did sound like that to begin with, but they're bundling lots of stuff into that if you separate them out would probably add up to that cost, which we didn't realise when they first dropped that.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about some of those extra things in a moment.
will.
I think the other thing is that, who is this model for? For those of us helping it write a bit of marketing copy, O1 is clearly overkill. You just don't need it. And in fact, the kind of results it will generate probably aren't really any better than what you get on 4.0.
Yeah.
So save yourself $180 a month. Who's it for? We think most likely the people who will get the most value out of it are programmers. It's a much more powerful coding assistant than the regular 4.0, and people doing scientific research and other data-heavy bits of data manipulation and exploration. So there are people out there who will get the value from it. Probably not most of us in the creative AI world.
But it might be worth experimenting for those strategists watching it in the data-heavy research phases and just comparing O1 with 4. I've forgotten the full name of 4.
4.0.
4.0.
They give these things such terrible names. They need to hire a branding agency. Somebody volunteer.
Please.
Right. What else?
Yeah, the other thing they've launched is many of us have been using ChatGPT Canvas. I love it because what it means is that when you generate something using ChatGPT. Sorry, Jules, this is on page 4 of our notes.
Yeah, we're jumping around a bit. I've got it.
When you generate something from ChatGPT, if you don't quite like, there's one bit you don't like, let's say, happens often, and then you have to prompt and then regenerate. With Canvas, you can just regenerate that little bit and give it a specific prompt for that paragraph or sentence or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, so rather like in a Claude artifact, it kind of brings up its generation in a separate window that you can then kind of edit as you go along, right?
Yeah, and now they've released this for everyone for free, because before you could only get it on the Teams plan.
Yeah, and it's now also out of beta. Like, it was a bit buggy before, it still is a little bit, I think, is the truth. Sometimes you ask it to regenerate just a little bit and it regenerates the whole section, and one or two other things like that. But it's definitely an interesting, it makes ChatGPT much more usable and saves a lot of that copy and paste between a Google Doc and the ChatGPT window.
Yeah, exactly. So absolutely love that. And OpenAI have launched one more thing that's just like makes ChatGPT much more kind of like user-friendly.
Yeah, just easier to use.
And that's called Projects.
So we've had projects in Claude for a while, and one of the things that we love about it, projects are where you get to upload some particular documents for the thing that you're working on, give it some instructions for the particular thing that you're working on, and then it has all of that knowledge when you interact with it. So you might have one for helping you draft killer sales emails, or you might have one for helping you write brand copy for a particular brand. And now ChatGPT has something similar.
Yeah, so it's a bit like a file structure.
Yeah, so you've
Yeah.
probably been in ChatGPT and you're trying to find that thread that you had with ChatGPT from 3 weeks ago.
You can use the search at the top.
Yeah, but now you can organize these things into folders, give them names that make sense to you, store the documents that you're using with those things. So it just gives you a lot more structure and control over all of the stuff that you're using ChatGPT for. So I think that's going to be just a really useful feature that I think we're all going to be using, just like Canvas. I think between those two features, Canvas and projects, ChatGPT just suddenly became a lot easier to use.
Yeah, particularly in a business sense, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shall we get on to the things that aren't quite in the UK yet, but we reckon will be here pretty soon?
Yeah, so that stuff's all great. And then there's lots of other stuff rolling out worldwide, except for the UK and the EU.
Yes.
So what are some of those?
Shall we start with Sora, which is a video model?
Yeah, so when we deliver our Creative AI workshops and we come on to the section about video, everybody is always asking, Jules, when is Sora going to drop?
Yeah, because they released that amazing video beginning of the year?
Yeah, back in February they started demoing this thing.
Yeah.
And since then they've been touring Hollywood studios and TV stations and all the rest of it. And finally they have released Sora to the general public, anyone outside of Europe and UK. So Sora is here at last. So what do we think of it?
Well, shall I talk about some of the features of it first?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that'll be good. So you can do things like you can adjust the aspect ratio, you can generate multiple videos at the same time, you can recut elements of it, you can remix bits as well. So you can remix parts of it while preserving some of the original composition, some original movement as well. You can create looping videos. You can extend clips at the beginning or end, which is an amazing feature for editors. A lot of the other video software is doing now as well. And the really unique thing that it can do is it has this storyboard feature, which I don't think is integrated in any of the other models yet. Yeah,
so storyboard's pretty interesting. So any of you that have sort of played around with the video models out there, and the one I'm most familiar with is Runway, the one that I've used the most. You can upload an image as the start of your video, or you can use a text description. We generally tend to use an image because it gives you much more control, and then it'll go away and generate its 5-second clip or its 10-second clip. Now, Storyboard gives you 10 panels in a row, and each panel represents 1 second of your 10-second clip. And you can give a different image or a different written instruction for each stage of the 10 seconds. So you actually can control not just the starting point of your generated video, but what happens over the 10 seconds that it's generated. So the instructions you can give it are additional frames in your video. So perhaps you want to show a transition from one to another, perhaps where somebody is on the left of the frame and then they're on the right of the frame, and it will create all of the frames in between. Or perhaps you want to move the camera angle. You can write descriptions of how the camera moves at different times. Perhaps you want the shot to be steady for the first 3 seconds and then orbit around the subject, for example. You can now start to do this kind of thing right within Sora. So that starts to become quite powerful and give you more control. And that's always been the difficult thing with these video tools, is getting the control over the video. And that's why you end up having to do often
So many
tens
generations.
and sometimes hundreds
Yeah.
of generations to get a clip that does what you want it to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talking of volumes of generations, that kind of comes down to how much you're prepared to pay again.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't available to us yet, but for those of us watching from abroad, so Sora is available to anyone on their
On the new
ChatGPT
plan.
Plus. Well, and anyone on the Plus plan, so $20 a month.
Yeah,
but
with some limits.
it limits you to 50
Yeah.
generations per month, which for anybody who's actually working on a video project will know that that's a hopelessly small amount of generations to do anything significant with.
Definitely a freemium model. but
So so that's really just that's the gateway drug to get
Yeah.
you to upgrade to ChatGPT Pro, the $200 plan we talked about before. Once you're on the $200 plan, you get unlimited slow generations, and you get a certain number of turbo generations that happen much more quickly.
Just a benchmark in my head, like how much is Runway?
So Runway, the unlimited plan on Runway, which anyone using it seriously will be on the unlimited plan, is $95 a month. So ChatGPT Pro is twice the price. But you're not just getting the video generator, you're also getting the world's best large language model at the same price, it's bundled into that. So you can start to see that maybe that $200 a month plan isn't so crazy after all.
Interesting. And yeah, let's see what the next 6 days of Christmas bring as well. What other new features are going to be dropping in that $200 plan?
Yeah.
Probably quite a few.
So
Just sticking on that video point though, Sora, I think it's probably worth saying that a lot of the there are so many great models at the moment for video.
yeah, we've got Runway, we've got Minimax, we've got Kling. There's a lot of competition in that space, and right now, they all have their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, they do. And I think something really important to remember is that people who are making AI videos aren't just deciding, oh, okay, I'm going to use this model for this whole film. They're using a mixture of all of them because they're all good and better or worse at different aspects. So they're
Yeah.
using them all together to create
Yeah,
films.
so for those people, Sora's just going to be one more model in the mix because it happens
Yeah.
to be strong at some particular things. So, for those AI filmmakers out there or people, creative technologists working with this stuff to create brand films, they are going to have subscriptions to all of these models on the top tier probably for all of them. So, you're looking at $500 a month probably on subscription fees to be able to use Runway and Kling and Minimax and now Sora, all to be able to do unlimited generations, which realistically is what you're going to need to work on any real life video project.
So it sounds very expensive, but a lot of the AI filmmakers were filmmakers pre-AI as well, where costs would have been much higher, just to get a camera.
Yeah,
would be-
$500 a month, and just to rent an Arri Alexa for the day costs you double that. So
For those that don't know, what is that?
that is a high-end video camera that a TV commercial might be filmed on.
Okay. So, yeah. Sounds expensive, but perhaps not.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the other video elements that ChatGPT have brought out, which is actually not about creating videos, but how it interacts with video?
Yeah. So day 6 of the 12 days of OpenAI, which was Friday, the most recent thing we've seen dropped from OpenAI is advanced video mode.
I think this is probably the most revolutionary drop that they've so far.
Yeah, and this
They've
is
come up with
actually
this.
pretty astonishing.
Yeah.
And that's why we saved it as the last part of what we're going to talk about with OpenAI. So advanced voice mode has been available to people on a paid plan for a few months now. If you've tried it, you get the blue disc open up on your phone if you hold down the advanced voice mode button, and you can talk to ChatGPT have a very lifelike conversation with someone that could almost be a human.
In fact, you spend a lot of your dog walking time talking to ChatGPT.
It's a great way to make what would otherwise be unproductive time productive.
Dog walk is very productive for the mind.
Sometimes I need the headspace, but sometimes
Yeah.
I need ChatGPT advanced voice mode. What they've done now is you can now turn on your phone's camera when you have got advanced voice mode enabled, and ChatGPT can see what your phone can see. And this is actually quite astonishing because it recognizes objects, it has a memory, it remembers what it's seen even when that item moves out of view. And it can describe the objects in the scene and tell you. You can ask questions about what they are or what to do with them or how to use things. The demonstration that we've seen on the OpenAI video that we're going to play now shows it giving instructions on how to make pour-over coffee. Very important in Silicon Valley.
And here.
And here, actually, and in Spark Studios. So this is actually going to be quite revelatory because it starts to unlock whole different ways of interacting with computers.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I think it's interesting in terms of like how the world works and how chained we are to our computers now, to the keyboard. You know, if our mode of interaction ends up being more, the computer can see what we're doing and we're talking to it, that's a complete revelation to ways of working, to, you know, desks, to how we interact and collaborate with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of almost like the ultimate next step for the smartphone revolution, right? Smartphones put computers in our pockets, but now those computers can see and interact with the world around them, which is really quite amazing. And it's hard to understand quite yet where all this could go, but I can already imagine clever brands using this to create virtual shopping assistants. When you go into a store, you can video the products on the shelf, and it'll tell you what the right product is for what you're trying to do, or help you find the right size for the clothes you're trying to buy. Or I can already start to see people trying to explore that kind of thing, and people will find 1,000 new ways to do things that I can't even begin to imagine with this stuff.
I think so. I think for how we work with our how you work with your clients, it's super interesting. But also just for the general future of work. This could be really changing. The future of creative work, for example, doesn't mean we can go back to more craft type creative and hand drawn and so on.
Because what's interesting about these things as well is with this model is it's not just being able to see what your phone camera can see or your laptop camera can see. It's also able to see the screen on your computer or your phone as well. So it can teach you how to use different applications, or as Emma just mentioned, if you're drawing something, it will be able to see what you're drawing and perhaps make suggestions or interpret it in different ways, or write some text to go alongside the drawing, or all sorts of other things.
If you're a designer and you're researching for a project, like maybe you're no longer limited to your computer, but get out and about and
get out into the real world where the real ideas happen.
Exactly, and be able to interact with ChatGPT in a different way on it, to record those ideas and ideate from those on the go.
Yeah, so I think 2025 is going to be very exciting as we start to see how people begin to use this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, on this show we talk a lot about, Anthropic are releasing this and Google are releasing that, and maybe Amazon are trying to do something here. And I think this week, and we've still got 6 more days of OpenAI's Christmas releases to go, I think it's just showing just how far ahead these guys are from everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just blowing up the AI world right now.
Yeah, when we think the others are kind of leveling up to OpenAI have stored up so many goodies to then just make that.
Yeah, there is just
so
a complete
huge.
blue ocean now between where OpenAI at and where Anthropic and Google and others
incredible.
are. Yeah. And we can't wait to see what they're going to release over the next week.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got quite excited about that.
Whew, calm down.
I know. Right, so we actually talk about some of the non-OpenAI. Should we chat about Claude?
Yeah, so the day after we recorded last month's episode, Claude dropped their new styles feature. Now, I did release a little video a couple of days later for LinkedIn just to show what was going on with that, but we know not everybody gets to see that, so we'll talk about it a little bit now.
Yeah.
Tell us what's cool about styles.
Well, what they mean by styles is basically tone of voice, I think.
And Claude's always been quite strong on that.
It's always been the best at that. We use it a lot for tone of voice, but now it gives you, rather than it gives you preset tones of voice within Claude, so you can choose from a drop down when you are prompting it what you want it to be, but that's not the best feature. The best feature is that you can sort of basically install your own tones of voice. So it can be your own, it could be your client's, it could be the world's your oyster.
Yeah, so what you can do is you can take a piece of writing that you've already done. You might want to take 10 LinkedIn posts, or you might want to take that long form article that you wrote, or you might want to take those brand guidelines that you've got, and you can upload them to Claude, and it will automatically generate a style guide essentially for itself to be able to write in a similar tone. And you can then save that and then it will appear in your little drop-down list of styles when you ask it to create something for you.
Yeah, so you don't need to describe your style every time. You don't need to give it reference text every time. So yeah.
So
very
in
cool.
agency land, I can see this being really helpful for people writing copy for multiple brands. You could have a different style for each of the brands that you write with, or you might have one style for social media and another for more formal writing, for example. And whilst that functionality has kind of been there in Claude anyway, as we said, it's always been the best of the LLMs at nuanced tone of voice. This just makes it so much more accessible and so much easier to use.
Yeah, it really does. So go try that for sure.
And I think it points the way that we're going to start to see these LLMs evolve going forwards, is they're going to start, rather like we've seen with Canvas in ChatGPT and projects and other things, we're going to start seeing these features that just make them much easier for people to use without having to have advanced understanding of how to interact with an LLM. You know, previously to create a tone of voice, we might have had to give it a document, ask it to describe that tone of voice and give the kinds of things we were looking for in a good tone of voice around length, use of adjectives, whether it was first person or third person, whether it was formal or informal, and get to describe that tone of voice and then use that as a description to say, okay, now write something else in that style. Instead, it's now just a drop down on your menu.
Well, I think what's happened is these things were built by programmers, and we didn't, to begin with, we needed to interact with them kind of in that way. And now they've got user experience people involved.
Yeah, exactly. And they're starting to find out, these things don't come with a manual. They don't say this tool is good for this and that and that. What they've done is put these models out into the world, and we've had to find out what they're good at.
Yeah, which has been exciting. But now, for people entering into using AI more now, there's less of a understanding, needing to understand kind of how to interact and or testing the possibilities of it. The possibilities of it are kind of shown to you
a bit more clearer now, what it's for.
Yeah.
We see that a lot of times when people first interact with these LLMs, they're like, I can see that it's very cool, but what is it for?
Yeah.
And I think we're now starting to see it a bit more obviously. The model companies are starting to realize how people are using these things, what the most common use cases are, and they're trying to make those a little more accessible, a little easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, should we do a bit of a change of subject?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Right,
Okay.
That's it. No more LLMs.
It's definitely been an LLM episode. We were going to talk about watermarking.
Yeah, so this
and
kind of...
You have been doing a lot of research into this. I'm going to let you talk about it.
Yeah, sure. So, we were talking about Sora earlier, and it's a very realistic video generator and probably the best at creating live action footage, i.e. stuff that looks like real people. So there is a lot of concern out there around fraud and deepfakes and other ways of identifying AI-driven content.
And that's actually why Sora wasn't released until now, wasn't it? It was like post-elections because of
That's
worry
one
about
of the reasons they gave.
whether that was true or not. Who knows?
So, and we've also started to see fraud taking place with cloned voices, for example, cloned video, where a bank in Hong Kong was defrauded $20 million by somebody impersonating their CFO. So this is starting to become a real problem, and a report released by Meta suggested that, or one that they referenced at least, suggested that 7% of online fraud is now assisted with AI-driven deepfakes. So it's starting to become a problem, and I think the tech companies, Google, Meta, and OpenAI, are very aware that if they're not careful, legislation is going to start to come in that will limit what they can do with their models
And
to
they've
protect
invested
consumers.
so much in their models, they want to do anything to assure against that.
So Google have sort of lent into this and created a system called SynthID that allows it to indelibly watermark AI-generated content so that anyone can test content to see whether it was created by AI and know with certainty whether it was. And that runs across text and images and video and audio. So it's really the first time we've seen a comprehensive AI watermarking system come out. Now, it might be easy to understand how watermarking for imagery or video or even voice might be possible, because you can hide tiny signals in the pixels or in the waveform that are indistinguishable to humans, but computers can read and pick up on. So I think we've probably got our heads around how that stuff works. What's very clever, what Google have done, is how you watermark text. Because how do you watermark text in a way that you know that it was created by an AI? So what they've done is they've created a system that creates very slight changes in the weightings of their model, in those parameters, those billions of parameters that we talk about for these frontier models, so that the frequency of words it generates in its output is unique to that particular instance. And what that means is once you've got enough text, just a paragraph's worth is enough, it says, it can essentially create an indelible frequency of words that makes it very clear that that has been created by an AI. And so you could scan a piece of text and know for sure. Now, those of you who have school-age kids are probably aware that there are systems out there that already try to identify AI-generated text for kids cheating on their homework assignments, for example.
Also for job applications.
And for job applications, those of you that work in recruitment, perhaps. But all of the systems to date are extremely unreliable. And even the best ones are thought to have false positives, 30 or 40 or even 50% of the time.
There was a case in the news this morning, actually, of a guy at college who was wrongly accused of using AI.
Yeah. So, it's a real problem. So this is the first time that we're starting to see 100% verifiable use of AI. Now, the reality is the way a lot of people use AI is you might help it to draft something, but then you go in and modify it yourself. How that stands up to this, I don't know, on the text side. On the image and video and voice side, you can manipulate the images and the video and the voice quite heavily, and the watermark is not destroyed, which is really important.
It's invisible to the human eye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think what we're seeing here is, tech companies trying to get on the front foot of this so that they don't get legislation instead. So they're trying to promote responsible use of AI. We might start to see transparency laws about AI start to come in, where you have to label AI-generated content so that it's clear to consumers what they're seeing.
So Google have produced a product or are researching a product on this called SynthID, and Meta as well.
Meta have also, you might remember we mentioned a couple of months ago that Meta have their new Meta Video Gen product, which they're using to help people create adverts for Facebook and Instagram. That also now has a watermarking feature in it as well. So tech companies are really leaning into this. Interestingly, Mango have released a new AI-generated image fashion campaign for their teen sportswear brand. You may remember we've talked about one in the past that was their teen summer campaign. They've now done it with their sportswear campaign. And all of the images on the website are actually in small print at the bottom. It does say generated with the help of AI. So it's interesting that they're being transparent about that without necessarily having to be. There's no legislation requiring that right now.
Yeah, probably for different reasons, and particularly that it's a sort of teenage clothing as well.
And, But so it's interesting. We're seeing brands are starting to work out how transparent do you need to be about this stuff.
That's very interesting, particularly in our industry.
Yeah.
I think we're on our last item.
So it wouldn't be Christmas without a Christmas film. And about 2 weeks ago on Reddit, perhaps one of the most accomplished AI-generated films dropped. And it's 3 people who work in film production themselves, so they know what a good story is and they know how to edit. But it's incredible what 3 people in their spare time can create in the space of 3 weeks. As you can imagine, AI video generation often attracts a certain kind of user, so it's perhaps no surprise that they picked Batman as their theme. But they have produced a 7-minute Batman film that, quite frankly, is pretty remarkable for its fidelity and level of engrossing storytelling. And I think it really shows in 2025, we're going to see really quite compelling AI-generated film content dropping on YouTube, being used in commercials and other things. I mean, AI video is here. I think we're going to see it often mixed in with real-life video, like we've seen in a recent Honda commercial for their motorbikes. But I think we're going to start to see AI video content going mainstream. And for brands, for certain aspects of what they film, especially the stuff that perhaps doesn't show real people in the footage, AI generation is going to become a very cost-effective way to start doing that. And I think we're going to start to see agencies being asked if they can actually deliver that for clients. So I think 2025 AI video, perhaps we'll be watching our first proper engrossing AI feature film sometime in 2025. For now, we've got Batman.
Fantastic. We'll have a watch. So that's it for 2024.
We're filming this on in mid-December because we're going away for a few days. Whoop, whoop. But 6 more days of OpenAI have yet to drop. So keep an eye out on openai.com/12 days because
12-days.
there is going to be a lot of stuff coming. We'll wrap it up in January, but in the meantime, you can stay on the front foot by checking out the website.
Yeah, so we'll see you in January. Have a very Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
Yeah, bye.